think that they'll try to open storefront.
I feel like storefront's a big enough play.
Door charge freezer and then wall charge storefront so you can look at the front.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's rocking what?
I'm taking extra flash just to see if we can finish it right here.
Alright, I'm out of here.
Well, they're going now. Get ready.
Here I'm heading north.
Alright.
Who's got clacker?
Do we have arcade or do they have it?
We still have arcade.
3, 2, 1.
Tell them going in.
Freezer and storefront.
Get the power.
Send it, brother.
Watch arcade. Watch arcade back. They can't come the other way. They can't come
Nice.
through.
GG.
Good execution.
Got it.
Green, we just censor office and dog, right?
Yo, what? It like swings open? Dude, this is slick.
I'm dropping.
Going. I'm pushing.
Nice.
Alright, what are we doing, boys? That north red door looks really good. It gives us really quick access to the vaults.
I like the vents, though. The vents are probably better for the button.
We could do a split.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
I can take this north vent position and just try and clear loans.
Who's going with you?
I can go with it.
Alright, perfect.
So me, Revenant, and Roach will be on red door duty.
Charges on.
I'm prepping flash.
Let's double flash the accounting area. There's a lot of rat spots to play. I'll get door charge. You got clacker?
Yeah, I got clacker.
Let's do this, boys.
Let's go.
Nice. I'm getting us into manager.
My vent is shot open.
Loans looks clear.
Flashing lens. One lens. Dead.
One in tellers.
I'm backing up. Okay, pushing to lobby.
Right, hit the button now.
Oh, this is dead. Heading through security.
I'm dead. Pushing bomb now? I'll go dry.
Security dead.
3, 2, 1, go. I'm dead on bomb.
Who's dead? I think they're all dead. I'm defusing. Well played, boys.
Nice.
Nice, well done.
Was
Nice
way
clutch.
too close.
Alright, here we go.
Alright, what's the plan?
Are we going all out?
Yeah. So they could do this. I don't think that they'll try to open storefront.
I feel like storefront's a big enough play.
Door charge freezer and then wall charge storefront so you can look at the front.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's rocking what?
I'm taking extra flash just to see if we can finish it right here.
Alright, I'm out of here.
Well, they're going now. Get ready.
Here I'm heading north.
Hey everyone, I'm TH Pine and I'm here with our creative director Alexander Baard, and we're here today for the Baard Q&A. Yay, welcome. Hi Baard.
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I think we'll have some interesting questions and stuff. So just for how to give people an overview how this works, you can either watch the stream on Twitch or YouTube and ask questions in chat, or you can just be in the Discord stage channel listening here, and if you have questions you can raise your hand and I might get some people in here and ask questions in voice. But yeah, either works, whatever you prefer. And let me know if the sound is good. I think it should be good. I did a sound check before we started, but if somehow volumes change, just send me a quick message and I can adjust. So yeah, how about before we get to any questions, you just give us maybe a quick overview of the update we just released with the Halloween stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, we're talking about the Halloween update, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can also talk about bank and customization if you want, but
yeah, obviously we released the bank and customization, and that dovetailed pretty well into our immediate update afterward, which was the Halloween special we're doing. We've got the customization drops every day for the logins of the sale, and in addition to that, we've made the Killhouse very spooky, and yeah, we're just wanted to do something special for you guys to celebrate Halloween and keep the game fresh. So, yeah, and there might be a surprise or two as well.
Great, sounds good. All right. Okay, chat is still a bit slow, so I guess we just start with some questions from the stage channel. I'm not gonna pick Doughnut because he had plenty of options to ask you questions already. Maybe later, but we have Very Lie who wants to ask a question. So wait, where's the button? Invite to speak. Hello.
I'm in. Okay.
Yes, you're in.
My question is, do you have, with the introduction of cosmetics, are there any specific rules that you guys have for them? So like specific colors that certain sides are allowed to have, or specific specifications like how big they can be before they start being, off the hitboxes that already exist, or anything like that?
Yeah, that one's actually quite easy to answer. It's pretty much as simple as don't give advantages that are deep into a progression pass or something. So like what I mean by that is, your most advantageous colors and silhouettes should be available from the beginning. And if you want to get bigger to, essentially disadvantage yourself, then that's available to you. But, it's just, again, like if I think the best thing you can do in terms of your competitive viability is to minimize the width of your silhouette. Typically, people choose the female character models in games for that. And also the kind of darkest tones. And so that's, I think, always going to happen. It's just a matter of making those colors available at the beginning in those silhouettes. And also, they kind of serve as sort of like the hard stop of, well, we don't want to introduce anything that's more advantageous than those options, right? So it just kind of gives us a boundary to not cross. And then beyond that, there's some other stuff with like the colors available to each side, right? The enforcers have cooler tones and the defenders usually have brighter colors, but we're still figuring out what the guidelines will be on that. So that's more TBD.
All right. That's all I really had. Thanks.
Sure.
Cool. All right. So a question from Shoulderville from chat. Has there been thought around adding additional creator tools, additional creator tools, or a theater mode for content creation? Also great work, love this game.
So to repeat, a theater mode, and what was the beginning part?
Like additional creator tools or theater mode. I guess they're talking about stuff like being able to set up scenes in game, or like maybe make the spectator of Flycam stuff publicly available, things like that.
Sure, like I mean, he's a content creator, so if I would presume the most desired thing would be some kind of replay, and then your ability to fly cam through that and do all sorts of cool dramatic stuff. Yeah, in the long term, that's absolutely what we want to do. It's just a matter of balancing where we want to place our efforts, because our team's quite small and we can't do everything at once. But yeah, like it's just we're actually evaluating whether or not replay is viable to do, but at this stage, given the refactor that's occurred, before it was just like completely, it was going to be such a mess that it was kind of never going to happen. But with the network refactor, one of the cool thing that happened was the way that states have been organized has made playing them back conceivable. And so, yeah, it could happen sooner than you guys think. It could happen much later too. I wish I had a more solid thing, but I definitely love for people to be able to especially replay a match just to see like exactly what happened, but also get all those cool cinematic moments and stuff. It would also make our trailer process a lot easier too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, the incentives are aligned at least, but we just have to figure out when we actually embark on those things. So
yeah, that makes sense to me. Obviously not the highest priority right now, but we want to have it. Okay, let's get what's that name? That's a complicated name. Why aren't I funny? Okay, not that complicated. Let's just cut off and see what they want to ask. If they join, that is. Okay, I'll just do a quick question from chat. I think. Oh no, there we go.
Sorry.
No worries.
Do you guys have any plans to collaborate with other games and maybe import some stuff from Due Process into other widely available Steam games?
Yeah, I think there are definitely IPs out there that would make a lot of sense to kind of cameo into our game. So in the more distant future, then totally, yeah. I'm particularly fond of the Runer helmet, for instance. Like, there's a lot of cool games out there that I think would be down to collaborate. So it's just kind of up to, can we strike a contract and do the thing? But our team's definitely open to it.
I was also wondering, do you guys have any plans to maybe do certain playlists or like 24/7 certain maps or different game modes?
Yeah, in time.
Hey, that's all.
Cool.
All right, quick question. I think I know the answer already, which is you can't give a proper answer, but people are asking this every few weeks. So, is there a date for the full release?
No, not yet. Still to be decided.
All right. Okay. Where was the other question I wanted to read? There we go. I believe, from Leprechauns in chat, I believe a better tutorial level would help the game a lot, as new players are more likely to continue playing the game, and games would play more smoothly as more people would know the basics. Do you think a better tutorial is worth your team's time?
I think about a tutorial, yeah. I'm not sure about it being a level. Not everyone clicks that button. So if you encountered someone who doesn't know what the hell they're doing, it's probably because they didn't play the training mode. On the other hand, there's a lot of nuance that the training mode doesn't try to teach you. But that's sort of more because, if you snow people under with way too many details, they're not going to remember any of it. So you kind of have to choose very, very wisely what you choose to communicate. That said, I do think that we could certainly improve the training gauntlet. So yeah, it's something we're open to. I just am not as bullish as everyone else is on the effects of improving it.
Okay, makes sense to me, at least. I hope it answers the question. Okay, let's get Avocado in here. If I click the correct button, there we go. Invite to speak. Let me see if there's anything else in chat. No, chat is fairly slow today. Okay. I guess if Avocado Avocado is not joining, we'll give Doughnut a chance. So, hey Doughnut.
Yeah. It's like I didn't speak to you, what, a week ago?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but so one thing that I want to ask is that you guys get a lot of feedback. You know, it's a lot of like all these feedback channels, and Discord and Steam, whatever. How do you take that feedback, filter out all the like, I would say, unreliable or uninformative feedback, and then implement that into your workflow? Does Axon just look at level feedback and it's like, dummy, smart idea, and then go with it?
Well, I mean, for level feedback, I think that would be best to ask Grant and Ben. I'm actually a little less familiar with how they incorporate feedback than I do. Mostly, it's a case of I'm giving them feedback about where I think levels need to go. And they might bring up, well, the community doesn't like this or that, right? And that's sort of the way that our relationship works, right? But I do know that they very intensely look at the feedback for levels and that kind of stuff. So it sometimes honestly causes problems because just because someone is giving you negative feedback on something doesn't mean that what you did is actually negative. And what I mean by that is ultimately the worst case scenario, the most damaging outcome is if people just have nothing to say about a level. They're just like, it's aight, then you've totally failed, because the whole point is to generate an emotional response out of people. That's what games are supposed to do. And so just because you guys hate a room or an area doesn't necessarily mean that it's like such a bad thing, I guess.
Yeah, and that was
as strange as that sounds, but
yeah, it goes into like overall feedback, or does V-Man or Vince just look at the mop should be buffed and it's like, nah, that's a bad.
And for sure, I think the like cool thing is if you look at the bank level, that basically emerged entirely because of player feedback. A year ago, we tested out the vault in the Killhouse, and as players rightfully identified, we are using the Killhouse to test new ideas and confirm, that we should take these concepts and apply them to a broader level, right? And that's exactly what happened. So I think in the grandest case, right, community feedback will literally birth a new level. And in the more, minute cases, like it's just, hey, if another thing, for instance, like people really hate the breezeway tile in the Killhouses sometimes, right? And so the appearance of those chain link fences was developed in response to solve that problem voiced by the community. So it just kind of depends. It's just intensely contextual based on the feedback we get and how we think we can best handle it while maintaining the goals of the changes we make.
Right, and last thing before I go, when are you going to have an other monetization pathway besides the game? Because, dude, just let me buy something here, man.
I hear you. In time, we're not ready to talk about that kind of stuff yet.
All right. Thanks, Doughnut. There's a similar question to that. I guess the answer is the same. We cannot really talk about it yet. But someone in chat asked, when will we get something like a Fortnite item shop? I think that would probably fall into the same umbrella.
Same category.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We scroll down. Where are the questions? Would you guys consider making the maps for each match actually completely different for all rounds instead of how it currently is, where it's the same map set on defense and attack, perhaps as a different game mode? So funny thing, we actually had that in the early alpha, like we had 6 random maps.
So it used
to be. You can talk about why we changed that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, Pion. Basically, as Pion said, we used to have it, and why we implemented this frame of it's the same 3 maps that repeat, is it allows us to make maps that are more unfair. And in fact, actually, if you have 6 random maps, then it seems like players become pathologically focused on whether or not the map was fair to them, right? And the problem with making, like, the fairest map of all is basically just a box with a box in the center to break up line of sight, and then you just move around the box and shoot each other, and may the best men win, right? Like, you want to liberate yourself from a frame like that so that you can make the most interesting maps, because sometimes they can be unfair, right? But if both teams get a chance to attack and defend the same location, the attacker-sidedness of a map or the defensive-sidedness becomes less of a factor. And in fact, really, it's mostly just a discussion then of, was it better to play that map on the side that you did with the information of what that map will look like not revealed yet, right? It's never going to be 100% fair, but when we make decisions like that, we can at least do a better job of making the game fair, and also, again, push toward the most interesting maps possible, right? Because you really, fairness and interest are somewhat opposed goals to push for.
All right. Okay, just a quick clarification. People have started asking questions in the no mic channel.
Yep.
That's fine. I'll try to look in there as well. But if I miss a question, I'm sorry. I'm primarily looking at Twitch and YouTube chat because I have these easily available on my screen. I think Avocado is actually available now, so if you want to, I think the invite is still open. You just have to press the button. There we go. Hello.
Hello. So I have one question. Actually, I guess it's kind of like 2 questions. So with how far you guys have come with the game, what is the thing that you guys are most proud of? And what is the thing that you guys feel like could use more work, or that you're just not exactly content with where it's at right now?
I think the thing that we're most proud of is producing a tactical shooter where people actually come up with a plan and execute it. When I look at other games, I do think that there are other tactical shooters out there that feel more tactical, and that, like, you know, their movement and leaning and stuff may be kind of closer to the expectation of what a tactical shooter is, right? But if you look at the actual teamwork being used in them, I think in the worst case, in the most common case, there's just no teamwork at all, and you know, it's about as tactical as an airsoft game, I would say. And in the best case, I think people end up using really flashy teamwork techniques that just they're only able to do so often because they're fighting a brain-dead AI that just will not aggress them properly. That kind of stuff just doesn't really seem to hold up in the PvP realm if people are really playing like gamers would, right? And I'm quite proud of the fact that we're making a game that, I mean, right now I think it's starting from a position where this doesn't necessarily feel like a tactical shooter, but that can improve over time. The important thing is that the whole time the premise of coordinating as a team is being rewarded and is useful to you, right? And if we can just keep that up and prevent the game from devolving into essentially glorified solo play, then we can bring in all of the cool tactical elements that people expect and make them valuable, right? So it's like you actually have to do maneuvers like a high and low, which is 2 people peek the same corner, one over the top of the other at the same time, right? Like, I want to get there. It's just I want to start from kind of this honest position where it's like, from the beginning, people have been coordinating as a team, right? And we'll make the tactics that you use more sophisticated over time with changes to the game, until you're really, really playing like a SWAT team. So yeah, that's what I'm proud of. What I'm not proud of is, I guess, yeah, I'm not proud of the fact that we're not there yet in sort of how movement and stuff feels. It's not just, say, like movement, it's just more the overall feel of the game. We don't have the dichotomy yet that the enforcers feel very methodical and measured and have that slow pace of a SWAT team where they sort of like step by step they claim the territory of the map and lock it down, and they're kind of like this creeping unstoppable force, right? And the defenders, by contrast, are meant to feel more creative and agile and a bit daring, right? Kind of more John Woo, right? Than these enforcers, which are meant to feel more like the action scenes in a movie like Sicario, right? So yeah, I'm not proud of the fact that we're not there yet, but that was kind of the course to begin with. I actually despise tactical shooters that make me move in arbitrarily slow or less than agile ways, because, you know, like, if you are playing a Navy SEAL and you actually watch those guys do their training and stuff, when they go full speed, it's scary. They're very, very nimble big men, you know, and there's no reason why you have to be like inching everywhere and unable to just do the most basic interactions in a speedy way, right? So yeah, so I'm glad we didn't start there, but it wouldn't have really yielded teamwork to begin with. I think that's just more like a mood thing than practical. So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you. And I have one comment as well.
Sure.
One thing I'm very happy with the game that like I personally love is the limited economy. I think I love it. It is a great thing. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that.
Question.
Yeah.
That's a great segue to the next question from Unlucky Monster. I enjoy DP's limited 3-round truck inventory, which the whole team has to share. In the roadmap reads. I'm trying to make sense of the sentence. In the roadmap, it reads how in a future plan is to change terrorists to buy their gear. Is the idea that everyone buys their own gear or the whole team together? And do you want terrorist play be less organized when compared to police side in the future?
I want them to be different, right? Like, I want the enforcers to have a shared economy, right? Where they're making, like, it's less focused on the weapons, right? Because you only have, 3 main guns and then the saber, right? And more focused on their utility usage.
Mm-hmm.
And I want the enforcer team to feel very intensely communal in their approach, right? Like, that they're really all on the same team. They're trying to make a strategy that involves the maneuver of the entire team, right? And the equipment used by them is really intensely considered over 3 matches, right? Where if you look at, say, the defenders, I would say Acceptance sort of like the highest level play that is, in the DPL. Most people kind of forget that they've got some wires on the wall by the end of the match, right? Which is like terrible. I mean, that just means that we've made an economy that isn't powerful enough for the defenders, right? And kind of why that is if you give the defenders a ton of really useful defensive options, and you don't really have an effective way to limit their usage, right? Maybe you do scarcity, right, is what we have right now. So it's like you only get a couple of these and they run out, right? Well, you're always sort of like in this position where it's like you can make very powerful things, but then if someone kind of just unilaterally takes them and then deploys them wrong, then you're kind of messed up, right? Where it, like, at least with a door charge or something, right? Like, you do need to take a clacker as well. And so if you're going to just unilaterally do that, you don't have any utility afterward. And I'm sure that still happens a lot in casual matches, but the overall, I would say that Enforcer economy works way better than the Defender one, right? And the goal is not to take the teamwork out of defense. That's like totally not it. It's just more, I think that if you want to have really, really powerful, important defensive utilities, you're probably going to need something other than scarcity to manage them. Because really what you want the defenders to have is, it's like, imagine they had 4 items as powerful as the wall charge, right? Like, think about how important the wall charge is to attack a team. And if the defenders had something that good, right, and they had 4 of them, well, you certainly don't want them to deploy all 4 in a single round, right? Like, that already happens with Wire, where it's like, people just kind of forget about their Wire, and then on round 3, they're like, shit, look at all the Wire we have. Let's just spam a bajillion Wire, right? And it becomes kind of like unwinnable to the attacking team in the lowest effort way, right? And so that's essentially why I'm saying some kind of currency that is like integer, like not, it doesn't cost $240.63. It's just like 1 coin or something, right? To buy a thing. Just something like that might help. I'm very sensitive to the complexity arguments that people keep making. Don't make the game more complicated. I'm like, I get it, right? Like, due process is as simple as it is because we really do want to not add complexity to the game, right? We desire to be a simple game that yields the maximum depth out of the complexity that we introduce. But it just takes time to, it takes some amount of complexity to get depth, right? And so that's sort of like the idea in the long term. We're not working on the chrome economy right now, right? Like, people have kind of made this thing into this boogeyman, right? Where it's like, oh, they're gonna transform the game overnight into Counter-Strike. And it's like, no, it's just more like, I want you guys to have like a cool selection of guns to choose from, and utilities that are very, very powerful and balanced, and allows for a lot of creative options on the defensive side, rather than being tied down to really rote repeat strategies over and over again, which is kind of like what the attackers have right now. They have to like use 1 charge per level basically. And the last thing I want to do is make simplicity trap you into just repeating the same thing over and over again, because that's not what this game's about. It's about originating new strategies to take on the challenges the level creates for you, right? And so that's all that such an update would be in service of, is just making it so that you have more creative agency in solving and creating problems in the game, and not to add like a fuck ton of complexity. So that's the premise basically.
Okay, cool. Okay, let's get Jalesha in here. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Hello, greetings.
Yes.
Hello. So let me just explain. I'm living in Russia, and like a lot of people who I know are interested in playing your game, but because the game is available on English at this moment, they are kind of scared to play the game.
Gotcha.
So the question is, are there any release window for the translations? For like translated from Russian, on French, or any language, like in general?
Yeah, our Steam sales indicate we've got a disproportionate number of Anglo region sales, right? So it looks like that if we do localization, we'll return those numbers will go back to what Annapurna sees in their other games. So it definitely seems like it's worth doing. It's just, it wasn't prioritized because, as you can see, the game does have concurrency issues. And I was, it's like, if we add, say, Brazilian, right? And only 4 Brazilian people are online to play the game, right? Then it doesn't seem like the next day there will be that many, And so the goal was to focus on improving the general retention for the game through the progression system we just added, and then we just chose to defer the localization till after that. But it's still very important to us, and we definitely want to do it. And I'm sad to hear that people are not buying the game because they think that it won't be playable by them, because it's not like it's very word heavy game, right? But on the other hand, like, I definitely do want to prioritize localization and get that done, just so that as many people can buy the game and play it as possible. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it kind of answered it. Thank you.
Good.
I'll just move out.
All right.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you. Okay. Someone on Twitch chat asks, in Insurgency Sandstorm, you are able to customize your weapons with a specific amount of points. Are there any plans of having something similar in your process, e.g. having a different, maybe smaller sight on the semi-sniper or of the ET side? Like, yeah, I guess different scopes, attachments, and stuff.
Yeah, could you repeat the question?
In Insurgency Sandstorm, you are able to customize your weapons with a specific amount of points. Are there any plans of having something similar in your process? Speaking about different scopes and attachments.
Yeah, totally. I would say similar, but not in that way. When I was talking about the point system for the Defender economy, I was kind of cribbing that from Insurgency, but I don't want it to be a focus on just like, here's an arbitrary set of attachments you can plop onto your gun. I wanted attachments to be like, it's just sort of like grips and muscle brakes in game are like pretty lazy. Like, I think Tarkov does it well in that there's like a cost benefit analysis you have to do. How much risk do you want to attach to your gun and losing it? And how good do you want to make it? But it's not, it is kind of just noise, really. That is to say, things that just make gun better, right? By reducing recoil in the case of grips and muscle brakes, right? Or say like armor piercing ammunition or something, right? It's like typically just make the game better, or sorry, make the item better is like kind of a brain dead option, especially if it doesn't really come exclusive to something else. So I would want, if we do attachments for guns, I'd like them to add utilities, right? Where it's like, in the case of attaching a scope, right? If you were able to put one onto the F1 as sort of like a reward for winning a round or something, right? Then you would be able to get double tap headshots of that gun much easier at range, right? And it funnels you into the role, which is, you want to be backline support with F1. You don't want to be right up next to someone, right? And that's the kind of nature of attachments that I'd like to see,
All right. Actually, I want to ask, like, would you consider making things like the laser pointer or flashlights and a customization option for the weapon as well, or will we keep those for as default?
Yeah, I guess I would just call it upgrades rather than customizations.
Upgrade is
just
the better
because,
term,
yeah, because it's like, it's not really a, like customization in that you could add, like, let's say there's like, this is sort of like spitballing here, right? It's like you could would buy a flashlight from the Defender economy or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then maybe the flashlight for the gun you chose is some like customization item, and they all kind of perform identically, obviously.
Mhm.
But maybe one looks like the ridiculously large clay flashlight for, I think that's from like Zenitco or something, right? It's just an enormous, like, it looks like an old 1970s, like, I don't know, big bulb flashlight, right? looks like the type of thing you'd strap onto a camera for a flash, basically, versus sort of like more like a normal mag light looking thing, that kind of stuff, right? Like maybe that is what we would have for customization. But yeah, for upgrades, like a flashlight's a utility. Would totally love to see a flashlight on a gun. As you notice, some guns in our game for the defenders have lasers, right? Were the economy to come in, those would be upgrades that you're slapping onto a gun to funnel them better into a role, right? It's like if you want brace fire to work really well with something like the KR82U and not just be like a really ugly spray pattern, then you're going to put the laser on it, right? And the cool thing about a laser is it creates like drawbacks, right? Like the enemy can see your laser, which right now is something that doesn't really work too well. That could be improved, but you know, it's like if you have a big red beam that you have to manage now, and make sure you don't shine it through a doorway to give your position away, right? Like there are consequences, and that's kind of like the class of stuff that I'm interested in doing, and not, you know, just, oh, I added a grip to the gun or whatever, right?
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Because that's like the fun shit, you know?
Yeah.
Flashlights are cool.
All right. C-Store is best. Feel free to ask a question. Good name.
Are you the guy that keeps saying on YouTube, this game should only be C-Store? Is that you?
No, it's not me.
Okay. Because there's like a guy who comments on every YouTube video, and like sometimes in a Steam forum, he's just like, why did you add the other levels to the game? This should have just been the C-Store. That was in the trailer. And it's like...
I mean, they're not wrong.
All right, so this is a whole faction now. Got it. All right, so what's your question?
I was wondering, obviously, Due Process is quite a unique game, and it's a very different take on the tactical shooter genre. But I was wondering, in some other games like Rainbow Six Siege, would there be possibilities to have destructible walls? So not only you can wall bang through, but you can, say with a shotgun, take a wall down, or add a new hole for a Molotov. Yeah, is there possibilities of destructible areas?
Well, we want destruction for the theatrical and emotional effect. That is, like, if you shoot up the convenience store, we want it to return to kind of how it was in alpha, where all the stuff is getting exploded on the shelves and there's like a big firefight that creates a big mess, right? That doesn't have to be done in a way that has dramatic consequences to gameplay. The thing I'm hesitant about is it turns out that keyholing a drywall and then just shooting through two tiny bullet holes to get headshots on the enemy team is very, very powerful CQB strategy. And I kind of laugh at that because it's never really covered in I've watched like a lot of stuff covering room clearing and SWAT training and all that jazz on YouTube, like many hours of that content, and no one really seems to talk about the murder hole phenomena. And I think Siege has really trained a new generation of barricade suspects on what's the really most effective way to fight, right? And like, I would love to have the level of destruction that Siege does. I don't think it's technically impossible. It would be very difficult to do, and I do think that it would kind of ruin the game. So I'm not terribly inclined to try it. Like, it just, there's a lot of cost in doing a system. We would never be able to achieve the quality that Siege does for their thing, so it'd just be obviously like kind of like crappier version of it, right? And I do think that, like, hey, you know, if it happened, it's just, it's really, we used to have that in the alpha, by the way. I guess in the Block Dude version of the game, way back when, you could like keyhole through walls and shoot, you know, you could mulch up walls and make a hole. And basically what happened was, yeah, the entire plan was we're going to stage up positions behind these walls and turn what was a convenience store into something resembling the like German bunkers of World War II, right? Where it's like you enter them and they're like all these tiny little portholes where machine guns will fire at you. And yeah, it was just like quite unpleasant and really detracted from the goal of the game, which was to have a game about dynamic entry and like you flashbang, you go and you clear the room, as opposed to just, yeah, we're just going to trade sniper shots through the tiny holes until everyone stops shooting out of them, and then we'll move in. You know, this game is more about violence of action than the limited entry approach that Siege has forced players to do. So
yeah, of course. I mean, I just really personally want to take Killhouse to the ground.
Oh, I see. You just want to destroy the level. Gotcha.
But one last question before I go, and I bet you get this a million times a day. But do you ever think about maybe making a free-to-play release or a light version of the game? Because at least I know a lot of people who the art style kind of throws them off, and they try it out if it was free, but they don't really want to spend money on something they might not enjoy.
Sure. No to a light version, but anything is possible for that. It's just, as I've mentioned in many posts, free-to-play is way more expensive than you guys think. It is, you know, there are all sorts of externalities caused by going free-to-play. For instance, the cost of cheating just became free. Every time you get caught, you can just make a new account for free. That's really bad. There are no cheaters in our game right now, right? The moment we go free-to-play, even if we have small concurrency, that will change really badly, you know? So that means now you've got a big live operations cost that we don't have right now. And yeah, in addition to that, you also have to like spend a lot of time and money perfecting monetization schemes, because, you know, it's not like you're still spending quite a bit paying everyone's salary in a development studio, and also, you know, server operations costs and that kind of stuff. And, you know, running a business isn't free. And the cool thing about a premium model is at least you know, people pay you to play the game, and you don't have to do like really elaborate schemes to recover that money back, right? That said, obviously lowering the price to entry is probably the greatest thing we could do to fix the concurrency problem. So yeah, that's, I guess, all I'll say on the matter.
Yeah, that's all I have.
For sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Where was the question? Damn it, it scrolled away. There we go. Echo on YouTube asks, will we be getting a sort of vaulting system so you can consistently scale objects that are like up to waist height at any time in the future?
I'm not sure about, like, say, vaulting, just because think about how bad vaulting was. Since people came up with vaulting, right, in games, there have been like hundreds of games that made like totally ass vaulting that was just awful, right? So it's probably better to just kind of like box jump your way through a level. Just because, like, you know, all of those games had terrible vaulting and they only had one map, so they could like create special cases for like vaulting, like this thing did that weird thing, so we'll create this clipping plane here and fix the problem. We can't do that for like all the maps we release every week, right? So
yeah,
I don't think we're going to have any kind of like elaborate scaling movement system, but being able to jump on top of things, I'm a big believer in being able to stand on a table. I think that is like kind of obvious thing you should be able to do. Like
that's a great quote. I'm a big believer in standing on tables. Baard 2021.
Exactly. My doctrinal approach, right, is don't prohibit people from doing the things that they would be able to do given the reality of your game. And what I mean by that is, if the reality of the game is there are just never any tables, like they're always flipped over, or they're like covered in boxes or whatever, right? That it's like at least consistent. I despise, I mean, like, I was just testing right before this Q&A. I hopped into a casual match just to make sure the spooky Killhouse is working properly. And I cleared a room and reflexively tried to jump on top of one of the Killhouse desks, because that's sort of like what you should do if you got an amazing vertical like the Enforcers do, right? And yeah, it didn't work. I was just blocked by an invisible wall, and it made me feel bad, and I hurt every time that happens. We just want to figure out a way to get that kind of mobility where it doesn't ruin planning, because it is kind of like the keyhole wall problem I was talking. It's like, if people can be on top of soda machines, or in the worst case, the early factory, right? People would mantle their way on top of like canisters and be up in the rafters, right?
Yeah,
it's
that was
like
fun.
You don't want. It was very much the factory Vietnam experience, you know. Like,
I know.
That's the only reason why movement is restricted, is to make planning more valuable. I would like to get to a content refactor one day where we make it predictable if someone's going to be standing on top of the thing, and you know, we eliminate just the kind of everyday problems that we see. Like, for instance, sometimes with bank, we would have problems with people gaining a peak over the soda machine, right? And it just, due to the lighting and all the stuff going on in the game, it was really hard to make out this guy, and he happens to be behind a totally solid object, and you're really, really dead, you know? And it's like, that's all we want to get rid of, is just like make the positioning more predictable, right? Because unpredictable positioning means planning is useless, and the game quickly reverts to, yeah, just walk in and shoot people, hope your flashbang lands, you know? We want to make a game that's deeper than that.
Yeah.
So
Sounds good.
in time, I guess.
Okay, really quick to the question before, actually. A lot of people have asked me in the past, will we ever do another free weekend?
Yeah.
I guess we cannot announce when or what the actual plans are, but
Well,
there will be
I don't
more.
know when, right? Like, these things are not up to our control.
Yeah.
It's a dialogue you have with Steam, and it's basically, you know, do they think that you've earned it in their invisible criteria that only they know, right? And so it's like, I don't know when. I was hoping we could get a free weekend for this bank, but that didn't happen. So it's just how it is.
That's how it is. So we will try to get more in the future. Okay. Hey, Glitch, what's your question?
Oh, hi everyone. So I have two little questions on some previously discussed topics. So one is about the field of movement, because I heard you want to add some other stuff, but to not be so chaotic. So do you plan to add the possibility to lay down?
So going prone.
Yeah, going prone.
Probably not, for a number of reasons. It's basically, it's the same thing as the destructible walls, right? It's really expensive, and the result is it diminishes the predictability of the game. And this is kind of why we went with the theme for the game that we did, where we wanted to make it feel more like a game than, you know, like there are other tactical shooters out there like Ground Branch or 0 Hour, or of course Siege has this, right, where it's like, oh well, we want to embrace realism, right? And it's like, well, we want to embrace a very specific reality that we've created, and it just seems like in this universe people never really go prone. It really does make for better gameplay if you're going to encounter guys that are just like hiding kind of like under desks, or like what I would do is I would position myself where your gun on the right hand side of the screen is going to occlude my position. So it's like when you sweep a corner to check to see if someone's there, I'll be under it and I'm going to shotgun you in the face, and that's going to feel pretty awful for you, you know? And that's the only reason why we don't have it. I think if we do future games that are not like Due Process, then I have no opposition to going prone. I think prone's pretty cool. I just, yeah, it's just sort of like, it's so high cost, and will probably just be something we have to take back out if we put it in, you know?
Okay.
Did you have another question?
Yes. The second question is, in regard of the new economy system, will there still be limitation of the availability of the equipment? Like the black market can provide only one sniper, even if everyone can afford one?
Now you're cooking with gas. Yeah, there's like all sorts of cool things you can do. Again, like, please, none of this is in action right now, so it's not like this is happening, right? It's just speculation, right? But, you know, something you can do, right, is like, how do I put this? A lot of what people do when they pick up a game is they want to figure out one of the weapons, right, and learn it and get familiar and not be forced to just play with every gun in the arsenal, right? And if they pick up something that is somewhat popular, then the likelihood that they can play with it again the next round are very little, right? So putting softer limits than hard scarcity on which gun you're using, just, you know, because it's like enforcers, you pretty much always have an AP25 available. So you just pick up an AP25 and you learn that gun, and then you learn the nuances of why you might prefer a black tar or the shotgun, right? I'd like to get the defenders into a similar state where it's like makes it easier for people to onboard, right? And I'd also like to make it so that it's like, hey, maybe your strategy does require the use of 5 shotguns, right? Like, that would be kind of cool. I would like to make the consequences for choosing that like more nuanced than, no, you just can't because we only gave you 3 shotguns, right? Like, I want it to be a bit more dynamic than hard limiting you out of stuff. But, you know, it's like, it could be quite expensive to do that because maybe, you know, like with every shotgun purchase, the price of the next shotgun goes up by a point or something, right? Like, that kind of stuff just opens avenues for expression that aren't, you know, to do something like as abusive as, say, 5 shotguns isn't free, you know, so there's a cost to it.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys.
For sure.
Okay, so I have another question that has come up a lot over the last few weeks. Our resident Linux user C43A asks, when can we expect Linux compatibility? Compatibility, not compatibility.
See, I just talked to Andrew yesterday, and he was like, well, you know, I'm looking for things to do. He's asking me about task prioritization. It's like, you should look into whether or not we can upgrade the EAC thing, because it would make the Linux users very, very happy. And so, yeah, it's really on our mind. I'm not quite sure when it'll happen, but you know, I don't like Windows either. I still use it because I'm lazy, but yeah, I would like to support you guys and just make it so that you can finally play the game on your operating system of choice.
Cool. I think that will make them happy. All right. Next one is Cal. Hello. Can't hear you. Okay. Let me see if I find a question in chat while they're trying to fix their mic. Bunch of them scrolled up.
Hello.
Hello, there we go.
Okay, good. Couple troubles the last bit, yeah. So hi. So like my first question is like related to the like overall aesthetics of the game. What is like one like asset or like addition that you have paid to the game that like you had trouble with like getting it just right to fit the aesthetic?
Oh, that's a real tough one to ask. I might not be your best guy to ask for that, because if it's just like an object, right? Like, I'm sure there's, you know, maybe Ben or Zach or Baldus could answer, like, this gave us a lot of trouble. I would say in general, it took us quite a bit of effort to actually achieve an art style for the enforcers that doesn't look dumb. But that was a very long time ago, you know. I'd say right now, like everything's kind of pretty smooth. Like all the hard decisions for art have been made. So, but yeah, back in the day, it was just sort of like getting the character design to like not look silly. That was really, really difficult.
Okay, thanks for answering that. And it's a very unique point of the game, so it's like I wonder about that. Okay, for my second question, I just wanted to know like as a developer, what's your like point of being satisfied with the game to the point that you want to like move it out of early access? What's that point of satisfaction to you?
Yeah, that's still just part of that plan's being decided on. It's just more like moving into 1.0 is let me be pretty honest here. I don't really see the difference between a 1.0 game and an early access game, provided that it's a game as a service game, right? Like, which we are. Meaning, as long as this game is supported, it sells more copies. And as long as it's selling more copies due to your support, it makes sense to keep supporting it. And, you don't want to ever just stop that, right? And so similar to Counter-Strike, it's just like, well, what's the difference between early access CSGO and the one we have now? Because things keep changing, albeit like at a much slower pace, obviously. But so it's like, hey, in the best case scenario, this game's kind of like never done, right? But it's not like it would just be in early access that whole time. It's just more like when you go out of early access, you're basically signaling to people like, hey, this game's now good enough where you really ought to consider finally diving in and trying it, And yeah, we'll do that when we feel that way. So
yeah, that vagueness, regarding games and services in early access is what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
What point? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for answering.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, cool. Any plans for adding new room themes to Dome?
Yeah. But that's all I'll say.
Okay.
Yeah, our current game plan is to go back over the existing maps and improve them. And Dome isn't in the worst state, so it will take a while for us to get to it. But I think when we do, really the problems with Dome are just honestly matters of variety. And we will... Variety is fun, like you get to make new levels, so... move new rooms, so I'm sure that all that kind of stuff will happen in time.
Awesome, sounds good to me. Let's get Razzie in here. Hello.
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 So, I have two questions. My first one is, since you guys added Defender Cosmetics, or like a big Defender Cosmetics, I was thinking, I know you can't truly answer this, but like an ETA on Argus Cosmetics and how you're going to do Argus Cosmetics? Because...
What do you mean by do them?
Because you can have like Argus be specialists, or like each one is unique, or you could have like different categories of Argus, like, I don't know. Yes.
Different branches?
Same thing? Yeah, different branches.
Yeah. Basically, we're going to do them quite similar to how the Defenders were done. We just decided to... I have some anatomical issues with the Enforcers that I would like to correct before we embark on making a bunch of customizations. It would be extremely expensive to change. So that's why we focused on the Defenders, was they were in very much a... Like, they didn't require any kind of, like, big change to improve any kind of issues over time. I would just say, like, basically, the Defenders will kind of improve in their visual quality as time goes on, similar to how your favorite cartoon in season 1 looks like kind of stupid, right? And then over time it matures and matures and it looks better and better, and they just get better at drawing the characters, right? I think that's what's going to happen with the Defenders, where it's just like we're probably in like season 2 or 3, and you're kind of like blown away when you fast forward to season 9 and you're like, holy crap, these guys like really did not know all the cool stuff that they need to do, right? And yeah, I just wanted to fix the enforcers and sort of like their frame before we embark on them, because they are pretty much as slender as the malnourished Defenders, and I want them to be a little more jacked, because they're supposed to be like operator guys that do this professionally and probably eat way too many supplements, and yeah, you know, like they should just fit the bill a bit more, and that's why we deferred them. And once they come out, I think you guys will be very pleased with them. They'll make you feel a bit more operator, as it were.
Oh, also here's a sub question: that where did the Beret go, and are we ever going to see it anytime soon?
Which Beret? Oh, the Argus Beret.
Argus Beret,
yeah. Yeah. So I was like, we have so few Argus customizations, we'll just give them out for free, so that it's just a Defender Battle Pass. And I had to take the Beret out because everyone was just equipping the Beret all the time, and it was like, no, you know. So that's why the Beret's gone. Is if I gave you one, you'd only wear the Beret. So sorry, you know, it's nothing personal.
That's fair.
Understandable. And I guess
but there will be a Beret. I guess Beret confirmed. Go ahead, sorry.
Gotcha. And this will be my final question. When are we? Any changes that happened during the prototype? Are you thinking of bringing any of those back?
Changes that happened during the
or
prototype?
Like features that you added?
Gosh, just what were the features? We had the
pipe bomb,
the very popular med packs. We had what did Plan say?
Pipe bombs.
Pipe bombs.
Stim packs.
Yeah. Stim packs. Anything else?
We swapped snipers.
Yeah.
Oh, we did swap the snipers. That was very interesting.
Different scopes for the snipers too.
Yeah. I will make a note to fix the mop scope because people keep complaining about it. It's not meant to be like good. Actually, the scope's explicitly designed to be a disadvantage, but that doesn't mean that the reticle should be crappy and something that people hate. So, to answer the question on whether those things are coming back, maybe. We don't have any immediate plans to do so. I would say that they were pretty unpopular during that prototype phase, which just for everyone who doesn't know, before we released the game, we were in a state where we were working on a network refactor, and we had the old version of the game just kind of like lying around. And I said, why not have our game designer try out some new ideas and take advantage of that time rather than work on, say, the network refactor, where it, you know, his efforts would be less valuable, right? And we tried a bunch of stuff, and I think the only thing that really came out of it that was good was the Molotovs, right? Was that part of the thing or not?
I think it was.
Yeah, I think Molotovs and Wire were part of that.
I think Wire was there before, but I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. So we only had Wire and flares. Oh, God. Horror. Yeah. I don't know. I respectfully disagree with the community on the idea that healing is totally against what this game is about. However, I do not intend to just throw med packs in and be like, deal with it, right? Like, it's more, I think there's value that they can add. There are good moments that they can create, but obviously in the state they were in the prototype, they were super abusable. I remember like personally abusing it where it's like, I just kept shooting out a doorway because it was like, there was a chain link fence, and so I just trade damage with the Argus outside over and over, and then heal, and then trade more damage, and that was just like totally stupid and not the behavior that I wanted, right? But of course, like any good player, I will abuse whatever is given to me. So yeah, I wouldn't say any of those things are coming back soon, if ever. It's just you know, can't necessarily rule anything out. It's just more hey, they were an experiment. They weren't like canonical additions to the game. It was just us trying to find things out about how to design for the defenders. And I would say that the defenders are still sorely in need of utilities, though, right? Like, we can all agree that just having wires and Molotov and like sometimes useful flare is kind of lame. So we'd like to improve that situation, but not through the utilities that we explored. Cool.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you really want health packs to come back or something?
No, I don't.
Just checking.
Speaking of things coming back, card and shield, when?
Yeah, I keep getting asked about this. I'm sorry that they're not back in yet. It's just they're very time consuming to ship. I do think that they're worth shipping. It's just an order of operations problem where it's like there are certain really bad things about this game. For instance, the one charge, one level meta that the attackers typically employ. We want charges to feel like a creative surprise attack and not just a, well, we have to just play this thing by the book and do the exact same thing. Which red door are we going through today, guys? Right? Like, that's lame. So now some people would say, well, the shield can help with that. And I would say, not really. You're still just going to do that exact same thing. You're just going to have a shield as part of the same meta strategy, right? Like, you know, ultimately, if everyone knows you have to eco through green, you're pretty fucked, shield or not. So that's something that I think ought to be fixed before we do a really time-consuming pass on making those playable again, right? However, I will acknowledge that I might not be perfectly correct on my assessment. I do think that the cart and the shield add a lot of magic to the game, and I think the cart provides a very important fulcrum strategy for the defenders, where it's like your entire plan rotates around having a cart, where the auto shotgun really doesn't work in that way. It's just more like put it wherever there happens to be some close range combat and see what comes out of it. I don't like that about the auto shotgun. I wish it was more important for you to, you know.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from with this.
So, yeah, I like, part of what we need to do to make the game great again is to add some of the magic back, and the cart and the shield were magic, right? Like, they made the game feel really cool in the same way that, say, like destructible objects and shooting out lights had magic, right? Or say like the old audio system and its more sophisticated occlusion and portalization of sound, that added magic too, right? Like, all of that magic stuff we want to reintroduce, because that's why we play games, right? It's for the magic. So, yeah. Next question.
Cool. A short one from Res. Will we ever have achievements for the process? Like Steam achievements, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. You know, in time.
Okay.
It's not the highest priority, but
yeah,
you know.
Okay, Baked Beans, hello.
Hello.
What's your
question?
question?
Yeah, I just had two questions. My first big one. By the way, I have to say, absolutely adore your game. I've been playing it nonstop since the beginning of this year. So unique, so cool, fun, just so much fun, and I can't stop playing it. Anyways, a quick question.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. You have no idea. I spent way too many hours this week. Anyways, yeah. So my biggest question is that I like playing the tub and SMGs, and especially I mean I'm a tub user.
Buff tub.
Yeah, buff tub. Seriously, it's such a cool weapon, especially when you run around. Anyways, a quick question. This game really works on a lot of close quarters, especially on C-Store. I was wondering if in the roadmap, maybe not an actual ETA, but in the roadmap, would there be a player collision? Because that is like the biggest thing I see in a lot of like fail clips and the fail Discord thing. And like for example, I just posted one where I was using the super shoddy, and I walked up to a guy, shot him in the chest, and nothing happened. My gun clipped through him. So yeah, that's my first question. I was wondering if that's coming up anytime soon, or at least are you guys thinking about it?
That is very, very sad. Yes, player collision is hard. I will. A part of me will die if we never put it in, but I don't think that will happen. Right? I think we will definitely put it in because it's sort of like what I was talking about with the shield is very expensive, right? Because it's like obviously a shield where he can just walk through it would be kind of fucking lame, right? But that's where we're at right now.
That's
is
how it worked
you
in
have to
Alpha, if I remember
solve the.
correctly.
No, there were times where no, like you couldn't walk through the shield plan.
Could you not? Oh, maybe not.
No, yeah, the shield would block you. Any player would block you, right? Because we had player collision in the alpha, and it was cool. It was just one of those things that we had to like cut very aggressively because for people who didn't know, we basically okay, here in my Slack today, I'm reading. I don't know if this is validated, but it's very interesting. Falda says, sound like New World might be in need of a network refactor. Their game is client authoritative, and people have discovered that you can become invulnerable by writing a script to jiggle the game window. And it's like, are you serious? Like, is this game actually just Fallout 76, but it's developed by Amazon? That's mind-blowing to me, right? We were never client authoritative, by the way. We're not stupid.
Shots fired.
That's why I'm like surprised. It's not stupidity. Like these people are very, very fucking smart, right? They have, like, in order to be a programmer hired at Amazon, you have to have a very high IQ. Like that's what they're testing for when they give you these programming tests, right? Like they're logic problems. And that means that they weren't stupid. They were just perhaps cynical. I don't know what the motivation is, if this is true, right? But that's not very nice. It's not how I would make a game like New World. But then again, their game is on the top of Steam and mine isn't. So what do I know? The point that I was trying to make is we need to actually, or network refactor, which is something that we did before our launch, was done because we knew there were critical problems with the game, right? Like that if discovered and abused by nefarious parties would just totally, like, they were uncounterable. There were foundational network issues that if we did not fix them, we were fucked, right? And people who tell us all the time, oh, the alpha was better, it was so great. Like, as Aaron puts it, it's like, on one hand, they were right about sort of like the quality of experience was better, but it really did suck that you couldn't actually play a 5v5 because half the fucking game would get disconnected by the time a match ended.
Or
right?
inventory
and that
locked.
was or inventory locked. There are all sorts of like really bad issues, and that's why this game kind of came out a little cruddy. It was very much half-baked in the oven, and we had to pull it out and sell it because we were out of time. And we, it wouldn't have been that way if we didn't have to do the network refactor. It would have been a much more polished, magical game. But unfortunately, we did, and we chose to do the tougher decision, which is actually rewrite the foundational layer of the game, and the quality of the game really suffered because of it. It was hard to put all the polish back, like player blocking. And now player blocking is one of those blocking technologies for shields to come back in, because you can't just have Tub Guy run through you and shoot you in the back of the head. That would be bad. That doesn't satisfy the requirements. So that's kind of like what I mean by it's going to take us a lot of time. That said, getting blocked by guys is sort of like, that's what room clearing is kind of about, is negotiating your position relative to teammates and adversaries. So we definitely want to have it in, and obviously want to have shields, so in time it'll happen. I'd like to make player blocking actually not suck though, because all games really are bad at it, and I'd like to apply our big brains to the problem and see if we can achieve better results than like the door stuck clip from Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
As funny as that is, right? It's sort of like a failure of the game that he has no way to basically shove the player blocking him out of the way. So.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. Is it okay if I ask one more question?
Please do.
Okay. So you were mentioning that these weapons that you removed from the original alpha or the game before you did that refractor, is what you said. So I just wanted to know, are there any plans to add new weapons or maybe even new wacky weapons? Like, for example, I think I heard you just say like earlier, like you said, you were gonna add pipe bombs, which sound fucking awesome. That sounds so cool. I love that idea.
Awesome.
Yeah, they sound okay. Yeah, in like on paper, of course. But yeah, are there any plans to add new weapons? Maybe even like more shotguns, supposedly. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I did actually bring that up in a partner's Q&A earlier. The shotguns thing. Let me get to that. But first, like regarding the pipe bomb. Yeah, there's a problem where things that sound cool aren't very cool when actually made. Obviously, we thought that pipe bomb was cool, so we did it, and the result was it was pretty much in any form, the behavior was the same, which is just throw the pipe bomb out the green door right when it gets kicked, and cook half the attacking team, right? And so it's like being able to just deal massive damage to the enemy team, right? Through a basically no risk left click, because if you were like a seasoned pipe bomb player, you would of course put a desk or something between you and the enemy and throw it over the desk, so they can't even shoot you before it happens, right? That was just the problem with the pipe bomb, is it wasn't very well designed. So if I were to do a pipe bomb, perhaps I would have it be sort of like a defender mega flashbang of sorts, where it like really concusses the attacker by just like totally overloading their helmets, because that's sort of why they are immune to flashbangs. And it's the visor is supposed to block the flash through automagic LCD technology that is not at all reflected in the game.
Sort of like oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sort of like an EMP. It's sort of like what you're describing.
Yeah, it was just more like a really big boom. There's no amount of ear protection that will protect against it, right?
Okay.
But yeah, I was just more saying that it's like, hey, if this thing is more like a stun, right, or a debilitate, then you could use it to gain initiative on the adversary and finish them off with a gun, right? That now it's like if you just throw it out the green door, you've done nothing, right? So if you design something like that, that actually has a place in our game, but just like deal damage by throwing something, just doesn't really work so well for the defenders, right? Like if something's going to deal damage, right, I think it's best that it be very intentionally placed, right? Which is kind of why like I am quite grumpy with how Molotovs work right now. Is it's just like, again, like you don't need to figure out where you're going to put the Molotov, right? Like, didn't we take the Molotov icon out, Pion? Is that still in? I can't remember.
think it's still
Can't remember
there.
because I never use it, right? Because
think
like
it's
who
still
fucking cares? Just throw it at the enemy, right? Like it's totally brain dead, right? And like I want things that have high impact damage or killing capability to be like, yeah, we really thought about how you'd come here and we set this up rather than like reactive. But yeah, utility is designed pretty hard in our game. It's not just as simple as like put a grenade in, as cool as that would be, because there are just so many consequences to how it erodes the team play of the game. However, fun guns, I think, are actually kind of like pretty low risk, honestly. And the approach that we wanted to take from the beginning of the game was that guns are pretty much never an AK or an AR, even though we have an AK in the game now. We wanted to make all the guns feel kind of like the F1 Lagrange, where it's like got really, really critical limitations, right? But has like a superpower that it's really good at, and our designs will continue in that vein. And what you were talking about with, say, the tub, as I explained to the partners, was the problem there is you've got a shotgun that occupies a couple of roles, right? One is shotgun supposed to be like the noob gun in a game, like anyone can use a shotgun, right? That's kind of how they are in Siege. But like in Siege, they're like really not the best pick most of the time. There's usually another weapon available that's a better option for a skilled player. I don't want the tub to be like that, right? Like I like that the tub is a really decisive, aggressive weapon. It's just, you know, it's good that it requires you to be like really risky and clever and aggressive with it, right? It's just that's not how new players play with the thing, and so they just kind of shoot you at mid-range in the chest, and then you just immediately laser them, and then they like quit the game and never come back, right? So we need to give them like a noob shotgun that has really bad limitations in the same way that shotguns in other games work, where it's like any real player just never picks this thing, but it's a great weapon for like new kids to pick up, and then further like reward the like core skills of the tub, which is like flashy movement and getting headshots of the tub to make it even more of like X Factor gun. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you for answering my question.
Sure.
Again, I love your game, absolutely adore it, and I can't wait to play it right now.
Of course, yeah. I hope you have fun with the new update.
Oh yeah, oh man, it's so good. It's so freaking good, man. Yeah. Anyways, thank you for your time.
Of course, yeah, and thanks for your questions. Really appreciate them.
No problem.
You know, I did want to say with like new weapons, like cool things, right? Like stuff that we want to do range from like think perhaps like Junkrat's grenade launcher from Overwatch, right? I think would be great if it didn't have the impact on hits capability that Junkrat's does. That would be like a cool power weapon, because it forces you kind of like need someone to screen for you and watch the doorway that you're shooting through or whatever, so they don't just rush you, right? Like that would be like a really cool weapon that creates team play, right? Or something like, say, we talked about, you know, the mop kind of again straddles two positions, right? Like it's meant to be an X Factor headshot gun, but really like the most effective way to play with the mop is kind of brain dead. You just shoot people in the chest and it takes up pretty much all their health and makes them ineffective, and that's dumb. Like that's, I don't like that at all. I think that's kind of the worst case scenario for both parties, because as the shooter you don't feel the satisfaction of having got the kill, and as the recipient of such a debilitating blow you're just like, well, now I'm just kind of dead, you know? Like I don't like that. So perhaps like the introduction of what I called the railgun, right? Which could take any number of forms, but people like railguns, right? And it's kind of a cyberpunk game. So something that basically telegraphs to the player through audio cues that someone is watching this lane, and if you push it, you're basically making a bet that you can dodge this guy's bullet, right? And something like that, where it's like, yeah, it is pretty much a body shot kill, but you don't how do I put this? There are all sorts of ways to play around that telegraph. It's not just like, surprise, you're just dead, right? It's like, you know that this obstacle exists, like the audio and visual cues told you this is going to happen. So now you got to use utility to solve the problem. Maybe you throw smoke, maybe you bait with flashbang, maybe you do that kind of like Counter-Strike shit where you just throw your gun, right? Like any number of things to bait the shot and like then aggress, right? Like that's the kind of like cool interactions that I want to see. And then like with all the like bread and butter guns, just like more things kind of like the F1 where it's like, you know, high effect and high drawback that's just the kind of stuff that we want to make. And that's just the most fun things in games, honestly. I guess like another thing that I wanted was, there's a gun called the AR-180. Sorry, this is kind of like my trap card. I guess I really like this topic.
It's fine. Go on.
Like fun guns are fun, right? Like I don't know if you guys have seen an AR-180. It's not an AR-15. It's like basically a Tommy gun, but it shoots 22 LR and it has like a drum mag, right? 22 LR for the Europeans is just sort of like, it's like a plinking joke bullet, right? That you can find anywhere in America. It's really cheap, but they're just little lead, tiny bullets, right? And people tend to generally use them to shoot squirrels and other varmint, right? But like, you know, that gun, if you watch people fire it, because it's tiny bullet, has no recoil. If you gave people that gun, it's like, yeah, the body shots just don't do any damage, so you have to like laser the head with this thing. But that's like a cool gun, right? Like if you don't like it, don't pick it up. But you know, if you can sort of like head track laser, then that could actually be a very, very powerful weapon to choose for you, you know? And that's the kind of like play style expression I want to see. It's kind of like a vector, right? Except I think a vector most of the time like rewards body shots enough that the RPM kind of makes up for the fact that you don't get the headshot. I mean, like it's still stupid in Siege, right? Mira's vector is just like destroyer, because it's just like, yeah, just get a headshot and you win, and here's 1200 chances in a minute. So it's bad. But yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we want to do. It's just like fun exotic weapons, and the whole like gist of the game is that all the weapons are kind of rare because all the good guns got taken away, and so people are left with whatever relics got missed by the let's call it a buyback. So yeah, that's the gist of it, and I'm looking forward to doing more guns in the future. Shall we move to the next question then?
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. Cool. More guns. Okay, so
1 sec before you ask.
Sure. We'll be right back. We have around 30 more minutes, by the way.
Right, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to check in with some.
No worries. Echo asks, can you reveal any details about what the bomb version 2 means on the roadmap? Will we be getting a more interactive process, like where we have to enter in a password, etc., to raise the stakes?
We wanted to have that kind of like cut the red wire shit.
Yeah, that would be
way back
funny.
when, you know. It's just one of those things where it's like, well, you do a progress bar because you need something now, and then you never really get a chance to come back to it because you need something now on many other things. So no, I don't think it'll be anything really fancy. I do like the idea of a bomb requiring more concentration than hold F, right? Because, you know, that's like the advantage is if you're holding F, then I'm sorry, if you're actually concentrating on the bomb, then cover me has way more meaning than just like I'll continue to hold F, right? It becomes more like my attention is now on this thing, and I'm trusting my teammates to help me. I would love for a game to get there one day, but in the meantime, it's just going to be we are changing the nature of the bomb so that the enforcers get an initiative advantage for having reached it, because we want that moment to be the we've got you now you have to play by our rules moment for the enforcers, rather than what happens now, right? In the worst case, in like the DPL and that kind of stuff, it's down to like a really tense 1v1. Oh my god, it's amazing, right? Except one guy is just like at the top of I don't know, say like jungle or something in the kill dome, and the guy trying to defuse the bomb doesn't actually have any cover toward the position, so he basically has to turn his back toward an enemy that he doesn't have enough time to go aggress, and he can't even really bait him effectively. Like, it's just a mess. Like, it's just a disaster. Really what you want is attackers have reached the bomb to be the oh shit moment for the defenders, where they really have to go aggress the bomb, and forces a real proper gunfight to the ending of the game, right? And so to achieve that, we're taking out bomb-sightedness. That is the direction of the bomb, how you defuse it no longer matters. I did think that there were obviously some real cool things that come with it, but the drawback is it just ruins all the 1v1s. Like, it's nightmare. It just sucks, unfortunately. So yeah, I just want the final fight to be climactic, and it's going to be better for the game in the long term. There's still going to be all sorts of interesting team play that comes out of covering people on the bomb. You don't need bomb sightedness to achieve that. I think the real casualty was, like, you might choose to attack from one side or another, knowing that you could only defuse from this angle. But yeah, unfortunately, that benefit's just not worth the cost of ruining every 1v1 in our game. So.
Okay, thank you. Let's get a Daxi in here. Hello.
Hey, Baard.
Hello.
Good to see you again. Makes me really happy when you do these, because it makes me really hopeful for the game.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I don't really do these too often, just because I didn't think people really cared that much, so that's all.
Two kind of difficult questions for you.
Oh, no.
One of the things that's been discussed for a while... okay.
Just kidding.
Factory.
Oh, no, he's
Factory
going
V3. Factory V3. It's on the roadmap. I know you guys are going back and you want to edit some of the tile sets, but what is Factory's vision to you? Like, what do you want Factory V3 to be?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because we
like
don't
alpha
know.
Or
like the problem is we've made a lot of changes to Factory, and we don't really seem to know what precisely we want to get out of the Factory, right? And so it's not a I wish the answer was as simple as you'd like it to be. It's just more to be decided. But on the other hand, that means that your guys' input is way more valuable, right?
Okay.
It's just yeah, we're just trying to figure out, like, people like to say things like long-range gunfights in this game suck, right? And it's like, okay, to a limited extent, I agree. I don't think that CQB means there are, like, it's not like SWAT teams do in fact train in industrial environments, right? Like, in fact, they do so quite often because it's really easy to find abandoned warehouses.
Yeah.
That is part of the mission, right? Is to figure out how to navigate longer, wider spaces. However, I don't want our game to suck whenever a big room happens, so we will fix that. It's just more a question of how do you craft these rooms to be a bit more plannable and playable, and more consistent in meeting the expectations of the player, right? So
Okay.
it's all kind of vague, but things that I know don't work is people tend to not like when enforcers have to go through a giant 180-degree sweep, like a doorway that opens 180 degrees, right, to a room full of perhaps a dozen fighting positions, right, on multiple levels. That is not, you can't fix that, right? And so you can't fix that in the plan, right? It's really, really difficult to navigate such a thing. Typically all people can do is smoke it and then kick the can down the road to the next 180-degree sweep with massive sight lines, or huge possibility space for the enemy's position. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we need to solve with Factory, is just make the, I hate saying shit like this, but like make the level tighter in that the possibility space of what can happen is narrower, and thus people can understand what the outcomes will be, and it's not just a show up and have a gunfight and see who wins thing. It's more intentional, because that's why people like the C-Store, is you kind of know what experience you're going to get if you go through each room. You know what to expect. With Factory, it's just kind of like all over the place.
All right. And I had one other question for you, which is another thing on the roadmap, which a lot of people are concerned about, could possibly harm the game, and that is Crimconomy. Can you confirm or deny whether you would be buying any sort of guns, or would it merely be like sights and ammo and cool attachment stuff like that?
Did you catch the earlier question that someone asked about this, by the way?
No, I did not.
Yeah, just to reiterate real quick. Yeah, you would be buying in the Defender economy as currently specified, which again isn't being actively worked on. I'm kind of sick of people being like, this is the biggest boogeyman in the world, right? To answer your question, right? Yeah, you would be able to buy guns, and there's benefits to that, but it's not going to be complicated buying. Just picture, like, say the coins from John Wick, right? Like, if you just have a really basic single digit integer, I should say, currency, right? Then now your choice matrix, right, is what kind of utilities do I want to get and what kind of gun do I want to get, right? And that allows us to make certain guns good, right? And other guns more budget picks, right? Because right now what we have is like every gun has to be good, right? And it's like, well, we want them to be kind of like good in their own way, right? But it just sort of like, it's very limiting to basically say that the Gruber has to be just as effective as the KR-82 or it's unviable, right? And it's like, no, like we can at least have another variable that we can push on, which is cost effectiveness, right? And that can be very helpful. But again, it's not something that I'm married to, in that it's like it has to be a crim economy, right?
Okay.
We have to solve the problems though, right? And the problems are, if you add utilities to the game that are as powerful as the wall charge for the defenders, right? And you have, let's say we have 4 of them, was the example I gave earlier. Then you don't want them to just be able to deploy all of those at once, do you? Right? No. Similarly, you don't want them to be able to just, oh, well, we forgot all the wires because we were actually winning and we just don't care, right? Let's just spam 9 wires, in a vault map, right? And make this thing totally unwinnable, which personally has happened to me with dev tests, right? And it's like, well, that's a problem too, like that's a problem that already exists in the game. And the fact that frankly, that people end up forgetting about wires or utilities on the end of a defender set, right? Like that there's still stuff on the wall is proof positive that the defender economy actually fucking sucks. Like it's bad. It's not good at what it does. It adds value, but it's shitty, right? Like it's not actually fulfilling the full potential of what it could be, which is make the defenders very intently, you want them to play Home Alone simulator, right? Where they're like getting very clever with all of the, I would be cautious to use the word traps, because I think, that is another word like economy that has traumatized a lot of people from Siege, right? Let's call them defensive aids, right? Like utilities that provoke the best, most advantaged fight for the defenders, right? We want them to have a lot of creative options in how they handle that. We want it to be predictable to the attackers, right? So it's like they use this last round, so they can't use it this one. That's good, But having, say, an extra variable of cost to put into the choice matrix beyond simply scarcity opens up the possibility space of all of the cool shit that we can do, and makes adding new utilities to the, it's like people complained when we added the MP5 SD and the, what was that again?
KRM, yeah.
Yeah, the KRM. They're like, oh, you broke the economy, right? And it's like, what? Oh, I didn't realize it was a good thing that people end up with only shotguns on factory because no one was paying attention, right? Like that. It is aesthetically desirable that people pay attention and manage their economy, but that doesn't mean that you want it to necessarily be in that way, right? We can achieve a superior result that does the exact thing that people are looking for, right? With a different approach than just, well, be very careful what guns you choose because you might end up with all the shitty guns for the last round. It's like, it's kind of like the Galaxy Brain meme, right? Where you've got like full, I don't know, multi-dimensional galaxy at the top end, and then you got Homer Simpson's like X-ray with the tiny brain inside his skull, right? That's like maybe a notch above Homer Simpson is manage the guns for like the game design of managing an economy, right? And I would like us to just get a couple notches higher. So it's like, yeah, you do want to intensely manage your economy as a defenders and make sure that the decisions you make now are prudent in the context of a 3-round structure. Like, that's awesome. Of course, we want to keep that. I'm just saying, maybe do it in a better way than what we have now, because, there's a possibility space that we could make changes to the game that actually improve the game instead of just make it worse, So that's kind of where I'm coming from with the economy. Is it's not like it's in no way some fetishization of Counter-Strike's economy, which I don't like, right? It's just I need to solve the utilities problem, and if we just put a sea of, oh well, here's a bunch of utilities and it's up to scarcity to make this all balanced, right? Like, you guys aren't going to like the result. This game's going to be a shit show, because we want the utilities to actually be good, and that's where cost comes in, is it solves that problem. So,
all right. Matoy decided to ping me because he's not able to ask his question.
He's gonna piggyback.
Yeah,
high IQ strat. I appreciate that.
He wants to know, and like, are slugs a possibility, like slug shotguns, and what's the deal with melee? So I'll just because that's his stuff.
I don't know if Shudaville's still here, but he asked a question earlier, and I memed him in one of his videos earlier about melee. The melee just wasn't added because we haven't added it yet. It's not like we don't like melee. I want to do melee well. I think a lot of games do melee pretty bad, where it's hard just to balance. Yeah, it is hard to balance, I guess. It wasn't done because it's not balanceable or hard to balance. It was just done because it takes time to do, and they're like, it's like you got a body just full of fucking holes and you're just trying to stop the bleeding. And that one's kind of like a paper cut compared to some of the other things that are hemorrhaging us, right? And that's why we don't have melee. I do want to add it one day. What I would love, in the spirit of the question just asked, is wouldn't it be cool if you could affix a bayonet to a gun for the cost of perhaps one crimbuck, right? And now you've got like this thing, instead of doing sort of like whatever the normal melee attack is, which I think should probably do like something like a stun, right? Where it, how like John Wick, he kind of like pushes you back before he shoots you in the head, right? Like,
yeah,
that kind of thing of like an attack to buy you time to execute a reload or change to a different weapon or perform the like actually damaging melee strike. That's the kind of like choice matrix that I want, and not like, oh yeah, you just walked into me and I just hit the melee button, so you're dead, right? Like that's not good. My point though is it's like, yeah, if you had like say the upgrade to buy a bayonet and you put it on F1 Lagras and you charge at someone kind of like in Battlefield, that would be like a cool moment, right? And we can balance it so that you don't just stand in a doorway and just poke people till they die, right? It's like, yeah, in order for the bayonet to work, you have to like sprint and melee, and that's how you get the one-hit kill and your character screams and all the fun shit, right? Like that's the kind of like class of design that we want to do, where it's like, and when we do a melee system, it will be part of a multi-month feature, and everything will be spec'd out, and trade-offs will be made, and we'll arrive at a system that's really, really good and adds a lot of value to the game, and we hopefully never have to come back to because we just did it right the first time, you know? And that's where melee is it's just pending, okay, this is sort of like our next priority is we want to do melee, you know? So, and that's going to take time to get to. I'm sorry it's not in, it's frankly an embarrassment, right? But that's how it is right now, you know. Don't run out of ammo, kids.
Thank you so much. And, I really hope we can get more of these Q&As, not just with you, but with like each individual sort of like dev or like department of the studio, because I'd love to go into more specifics.
I know for a fact they would love to talk to you guys, so
thank you so much.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
All right. Brain Freeze asks, I find that allowing surviving players to keep their guns/equipment after a massive explosion is a bit unintuitive. Was there any thought into changing the bomb into something less deadly while keeping it mechanically the same? And I think the answer will surprise them.
Cadets hate this. Ruin your game with one weird trick. No, we didn't ruin the game. The intention was always for the bomb to kill you. We just need to provide a way for you to escape such an explosion. Just like in Counter-Strike, right? Like you set the bomb and there's a radius and you have to like, you know, not be in the radius to not die. That was good. Siege's one is an embarrassment, if I may say, which is, oh yeah, the terrorists, they succeeded, and now this nerve gas just comes creeping out. Like, that, are you serious? That's really anticlimactic. Like, you could have just blown up the level in the way that we did, right? Just, it's like there's a bomb, right, or whatever. It's lame, right? It's like, come on, you don't want any kind of anticlimactic bomb where it's like, it just made a different beep and the round's over and the defenders won. Like, it's so lame, you know? But I do want to get to a point where it's like, yeah, you escape the explosion and that's how you keep your gear. And it's all very dramatic and super cool. But that's all I'll say right now. I see Red Commissar's in chat, so I'm sure he has words about that. But we will get it to a point where it feels very good and provides all the drama that we want. It's just going to take some time from the last test. But yeah, one day the bomb will kill you.
Okay, speaking of Red Commissar, let's get him
Here he
on
comes.
and see what he wants to ask about. He just messaged me, so he should be available. Maybe a step. There we go.
There we go.
I don't understand why it takes like 3 minutes for it to show up for me.
Interesting.
I'll keep all that cadet stuff in cadet, and I've given you my words on my opinions on that. So, my first question is that I've been in this games community for a very long time. There's only a handful of people who are still around who are longer, Pion being one of them. And in the time I've been here, I've seen almost every art asset updated or changed in some way. except for the ones that we see the most, which are the guns, with the notable exception probably being the Gruber and Auto Shotgun, I think, and even those are like 2 years ago at this point.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Are we gonna see any gun updates? Because there's some of the models are starting to look dated. I mean, the AP25 is just a box. I guess now it's a box with a few gray boxes that have been bolted to it with Gunplay 3. But I mean, it's like really visible if you look at the Black Tar with its new sight. Its new sight looks gorgeous, and then you look at the gun and it just looks wrong. Are we going to see any updates to the gun models sometime in the future?
Yeah, the Black Tar sight was actually meant to be a 2x prism. But that didn't happen because I found out that we actually don't change the FOV of our guns anymore. And I was like, are you serious? Okay. So I wanted to have slight magnification so that, you know, it would perform better at its role, but not be like it's kind of like what the Ingmar was supposed to be, where you like have that sight as opposed to the mop, right? Or the saber. Anyway. So that didn't happen. That's why we updated the thing. We also gave it the suppressor because suppressors are going to take a long time to get to, so we might as well have some suppressed guns, and we did the MP5 and the Black Tar SD for that. It is 300 blackout after all. The guns will be updated. It wasn't really on our immediate to-do list. I guess I will keep that in mind in the future when it comes to prioritize, but it wasn't like hot on the to-do list. It was just more like some people are like, we should fix the guns. I'm like, yeah, but we should fix all these other things. And so maybe their argument should have more priority.
And I wouldn't say prioritize remodeling the guns over, fixing the game. It's just, some of them definitely look dated compared to the game's current art style. Yeah. And I don't like how the KR82M looks. Galils are bad. But that's my personal opinion.
Israel would
that's
like
a different
to know your
issue.
location.
Now, the other question I had, and you had kind of touched on this through some of the other questions I've been here for, has been that planning has been the main draw of the game to me, and it really feels like it's starting to become just, here is a neat little gimmick that you can ignore, and just run in and shoot mans. And I think you had talked about it, talking about more defender utilities, cart and shield. I am a big supporter of those coming back. I think they add a lot of dimensions to the game as far as planning goes. They're obviously not a fix-all, but I do think they would add a lot, or at least require some team play, because an unsupported cart and an unsupported shield are basically dead. I mean, in Alpha, when shield was there, if it was unsupported, you just walk up to it and shoot it. It was that simple, and it was great.
But the shield? No, they would press Z and then they would shoot you in the face with
Well,
a shotgun,
they knew
right?
what they were doing.
Yeah, and well, that's like another problem that's blocking it, right? I can't accept that in a production environment.
Yeah. I fully agree with that. I think that shield comes back, shield dropping needs to be fixed. But obviously shield and cart coming back, that would help with planning.
Yeah.
And then, you talked about that you didn't want the game to just be, oh, we charge and run at bomb, and because that's what it has become. It's just you go to the red door, you blow in, and you don't really think much beyond that. So I think then that comes into level design. And I was interested, what are you thinking with some of these reworks on the maps? Do you have plans for those to prioritize planning? I found it interesting that you said that Dome was not in the worst state, which I interpreted as it was not in the worst state of the maps, which I would disagree with. I think as far as you charge in, you run in and get kills, Dome is by far the worst. It has exactly 2 paths almost every time to bomb, and you just take one of those paths and shoot anyone in your way, and you don't think about it. Just whatever entrance is closest to bomb and economical.
That is fair. What I mean by that, though, is perhaps more holistic. The factory is pretty... How do I put this? pretty close to Dome in that quality. I would say that the Dome probably has. Oh, I don't know. I think they're about toe-to-toe, honestly, because there are some values to choosing to do certain things in Dome that seem to be a bit harder to express in a factory. But let's just chalk that up to a matter of opinion between the two of us. On the other hand, though, at least the Dome works. It generates properly, and it yields a level that meets the visual quality bar for the artists. The same cannot be said for the factory, which is pretty much at this point almost entirely made by hand, thus defeating the purpose of a procedurally generated pipeline. And also, doesn't meet design criteria for a game, and also doesn't meet the visual quality anymore. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to say that Dome is how I would like it to be. It's just compared to, say, the Killhouse and the factory, not as bad as them. And I would say the C-Store, and that I think the problem, I guess, with the Dome is way harder to solve than with those 3 levels, which is why they're up first. And it was really up to the designers to choose what levels they want to go back on, and those are the ones that they chose. So, it's all about the cost benefit,
I suppose, Nori, I went a little too far into my dislike of Dome there. What I was really going for is what changes are you looking at bringing that are going to re-emphasize planning? Like obviously more defender utility, bring back card and shield, any specific level design, like Killhouse, a map I actually really like. I feel like it works the best when there is a sort of non-essential secondary objective, not like button on bank, like how Powerbox works on a lot of maps and how it used to work on Killhouse. But now we have things like Pillbox in the middle of the map that gives you a lot of map control. That's a really good secondary objective that it's like, oh, we could blow this red. It's a little further from bomb, but we get Pillbox control, which is huge. Are you going to try and look for more of that kind of stuff in level design? Are there any specific utility ideas you have to give to either team that puts more planning in? What kind of changes do you have in mind? And if you have any specifics on them, that would aid in requiring more planning or emphasizing planning more.
That's totally what we want to do with the Killhouse. Is Grant is presently refactoring the generation such that it generates as opposed to is manually set to produce certain rooms, right? So what that means is we get the full gamut of rooms that were created for Killhouse in a random basis, and we kind of now are forced to solve the design problems with those rooms instead of basically just saying, well, people don't like this, so I'm just not going to make a breezeway because I don't feel like getting griefed next week. So, instead we'll actually fix the breezeway, which I believe we already have. So that's what we're looking to do, is emphasize key terrain on the Killhouse, because the worst Killhouse maps are ones where it's just it's just what do you call it? Brick house, it's a donut, brick house, lockers, stage, and reception, right? It's cool, this is why I fucking spent so many years of my life getting this team to produce procedurally generated maps, is just so we could have the same map over and over again, right? And so that's why we're fixing that. Is it seems to be pretty low cost to get everything in a state where, we've got all these rooms and we get novel combinations of things, and people are once again going, ooh, that's interesting, I've never seen that before, what are we going to do about this, right? So that will help immensely with planning, at least on the Killhouse. As for the other stuff, it's just a question, I think, of giving the defenders more utilities so that they can counter expected plays, right? And I would say also giving the attackers, which ironically may take priority over the defender utilities, giving them a way to get out of the one charge, one door meta, because that just makes everything kind of lame. Same strategy every map. It's really, you're quite clamped, right? So I would say those two things are going to put more emphasis on planning because, as we know, if you have powerful utilities, then you can make a plan for how you're going to defend stuff, and simply moving that lever a bit will, I think, return defenders to intensely considering, say, like the positional benefits of just little shit like, what if you have a guy hiding under the stage with a shotgun and someone's shooting at long range, and this guy is basically baiting the other guy to pay attention to him so this shotgun guy can decisively push him, right? Like, that's the kind of stuff that our game's about, is just the mutual positioning of defenders to fight 2v1s, right? And we want to give them more verbs to make that happen more often, because then they're planning correctly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with a lot of the points you've made there, and I'm excited to see what solutions you come up with. My last question, kind of on the topic of Killhouse, is I've asked Grant, I've asked Axum several times to put Bedroom back in Killhouse, Bedroom an old room, and he has said no every single time. So now I'm asking you.
What is old room?
It is a bedroom. Bedroom.
Oh, you said bedroom and something room.
I said it was an old room.
Oh. Like, the only reason we don't want bedroom is it's a pointless room. Like, we can do it. It's just, like, I think the height of tactical interest a bedroom can provide is the mattress has turned over, and if it's like a California King sized mattress, then perhaps that creates enough of a concealment occlusion volume that you could make a plan like, I'm going to shoot through the mattress when I hear the door get kicked, right? And like, that's cool, right? It's just what we want to do is focus more on rooms that provide key terrain, because we kind of have the like bread and butter, these always play the same way rooms, like the kitchen. We just have enough of those. We don't have enough key terrain, where we want central tactical challenges of like, what are we going to do about this, right? If you're not saying that at the beginning of a round, then we've kind of failed.
Well, in that case, I'll take that information and work on my bedroom pitch some more.
Okay.
But thanks for the answering the questions. Thanks for doing this. It's always good fun when you come up and just answer questions from the community. Really
For sure.
appreciate
Always
all
happy
the
to do so.
transparency and all that.
All right, cool. I think we'll have to end it here, if I'm not mistaken.
I said 2:30. I think your time zone's off, but we can. How about you want to do 15 more minutes, or do you have to go plan?
No, I'm fine. We can go on. I thought, okay, so we have another hour?
Let's do 15 more minutes, because
Okay.
I do have some pressing matters to attend.
Okay, that's fair. Sure. Okay, so we have a few more questions. Sweet. I think he still wanted to come back. I think he renamed there, so I can't find him in the list anymore. Oh, there we go. He raised his hand. Let's see. There we go. Welcome back.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I was wondering if you guys had plans for some more optimization updates. Maybe it's just me and my friends are a bit unlucky, but we have an issue whenever we join games, we seem to crash, and then we'll have to reload the game and then rejoin. Do you know what might be the issues with that?
I don't know what's causing you to crash. For that, we need you to send us your crash reports per the instructions on the Discord. We do, like, crashes get elevated to like the highest priority in bug fixes, so definitely do that, and we will fix your crashes, because that's how it works. As for performance, yeah, that is like the highest percentage of reasons why people negatively review our game are concurrency related, right? And the second highest is performance. So we are definitely, obviously the concurrency is affected by the performance stuff. So yeah, we're doing that very shortly. It's just we would have had it done earlier, honestly. The intent was to release both performance and customization in conjunction, right? But unfortunately, we had some personnel issues, and yeah, so now we're going to work on performance. But there are some like very encouraging things on the horizon, some easy wins, it seems, that may substantially improve the frame rate within the next season. So I think that's going to be cool.
Okay, one more question. If I was to set up, say, a content creators versus devs kind of match up in due process, how would I go about setting that up?
Talk to Bion.
Yes, hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Feel free to send me a DM.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, those are my only real questions.
All right, cool.
What about optimization?
Derby has an interesting question. What color should a shutter be on the map? And when are you going to make all shutters the same color?
Can't believe you've done this, Derby. I don't know, dude. There's just problems like how do we communicate that they are electric, right? Like maybe they should be caution tape alternating red and yellow, as ugly as that would look. I don't know. There are problems. There are many problems. This is among those problems. Next question.
Sure. Camps asks, they're a father and their time is very valuable, and it's hard to justify playing when rounds are often over 50% planning time. Any changes coming?
Yes. We want planning to be a thing in the game, though. So it's not like what we want to do is reduce the planning time. We want to get people to actually plan in the planning time. However, you know, it's not like just forcing you guys to stare at a screen is going to do that, right? Like the other guy asked about the bomb, right? And why it doesn't kill you. That's part of the update for pacing, where we remove a lot of the needless downtime in the game. And we also want to address the planning stuff as part of that, right? I don't have any details on what we'll decide yet, but, you know, hey, you know, it does suck if you're all sitting there and you're done with the plan, or there wasn't a plan and you're just waiting. And if the other team's in the same position, then perhaps we can just get on with the match, you know? So, yeah, we will see what the outcome is, but obviously if you make a game where we reduce the planning of this game to 0, then why play this game over any number of other tactical shooters on the market? I just don't understand, you know, like that as far as just gunplay and playing a shooty game goes, like other games do that better than we do. So we do have to maintain our core feature, you know, like to some degree, right? Like that's what makes due process special. And so, yeah, we'll figure out the best way to make that happen.
All right, cool. Tetra wanted to ask something.
Tetra.
Hello. This is a question from someone in general. Where is it? Oh yeah. Will there at least be the Halloween event repeated each year for people who don't own the game or cannot log in over the weekend?
Yes. You know, in Halloween.
I think specifically
Okay,
they're
look.
asking if there is another way to get these cosmetics if they missed them now.
Oof. Nope.
At some point, I guess.
I mean, maybe next Halloween, but yeah, that's kind of like the point of it being an event, right? I think we made it pretty easy. It's just a login. You don't even have to play right now. But yeah, in the future, cosmetics will require actually playing the game to earn for holiday events. So in that regard, it gets worse. Maybe one day there will be trading or something, and you could get them that way. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lord Bard.
Mr. Lord Bard.
All right.
Glad
He's
he knows my full
British.
name.
That makes sense.
So last question then.
Okay, sure. What are your thoughts about the game mode with lower player count and faster rounds?
This is sort of like the same thing with the pacing question. Yeah, like, oh, lower player count, faster rounds, so like 2v2
Yes,
maybe.
yes.
That's what he's talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely want to do that. What I want to figure out is how to. I'm just trying to figure out what's the final vision of how matchmaking works. And then once I have that, I will be able to spec out the stepping stones that we can do in the interim. That won't be lost work toward the final goal. And once I have that, then we can do things like 2v2 because we have a 2v2 mode. It's actually really, really cool. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I can answer, let's do 10 more minutes actually, if that's fine with you, Pion.
Absolutely.
And then I absolutely have to go. Just
Okay.
give me 1 sec to, why don't you pick a good question and I'll be right back, okay?
All right. Okay, I'll just get the next person in here. Synthetic. There we go. And now we'll just wait for Baard. Hello. Can you say something so I can check your volume levels while we're waiting?
I'm back.
There we go. Synthetic, are you here? Because I can't hear you. Muted? Unmuted. Okay, seems like the mic is not working. Maybe just type the question in chat somewhere. For now, I'll move you to audience and take a Davino Hunk instead.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Just wanted to say, first of all, I really like your game. I've been playing for like almost a year now, but there's just one issue I've had that's reoccurring quite a couple of times, and it's just that, like for me, because I work quite a bit like everyone else, but since time is very precious, whenever there's like an update or like a certain download that needs to happen, sometimes the game fails to process the update correctly, and then it just makes the game unplayable, and I have to reinstall, and of course that takes up a lot of time, and then I actually don't get to play the game. So it actually put me off playing the game for like almost a year, to which now, since all the updates that have come out with Killdome and Bank, has actually made it more, how would you say, more attractive to come back and play it. But it actually happened again today. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Is this covered in our tech support stuff, by the way? Is
So
this
I
that
actually,
issue, or is it something
I'm
we're
not,
unaware of?
I'm not too sure because I actually haven't looked into it too much until today. I just thought it was maybe a way to clear it up, which was by deleting the Steam cache or just reinstalling the game completely. But other than that, I haven't really looked into it. I just thought I'd get your opinion on that.
I know that there are some known issues with installing updates. I'm not sure if the one described falls under that exactly, but I know that Oz is aware of some things. If I remember correctly, Steam is not handling very well when your game has a lot of small files. But I might be mistaken. Would be a question for Ozzy.
Yeah, because for a lot of friends of mine and stuff, it's kind of put them off playing the game in general.
Of course.
And it's kind of sad because it's a really great game, and I think there's a lot of potential in the game. And I have another question if you're up for it.
Sure.
Yeah, please. And I just wanted to say, like, not to really pass the buck here, because we're just trying to fix it as best we can. But Steam's update flow really sucks. Like, it's
Yeah, literally.
This is not. It's not really our fault. Unless you basically want to say, well, you guys shouldn't use the Steam updater. You should have the launcher within a launcher solution that many other games have, right? Where it's like you press play on Steam to bring up a launcher window that then updates your game, right?
Yeah.
I get very mad when games do that.
Yeah, I wish they wouldn't, but I definitely see why they do, given the shit that we have to deal with all the time when it comes to how Steam's updater works, right?
But you
And
should
it's
be
like,
able to depend on the Steam's version of that, you know?
Yeah, and I wish it worked better. We will do the best to massage our game to comply with the expected cases that Steam's updater is dealing with, but it's not a very well documented thing, and really it's just sort of like Aaron finds potential leads and then we execute on them and we see if it fixed it, but we never have the update problems, right? Like in our studio. So it makes it very hard to actually identify what the hell is happening. You know,
where it's
like,
coming from and all, yeah.
and so, I do apologize, and I know it really sucks, and the fact that our
No,
game updates
that's
on a
all
weekly
right.
cadence is means that you guys face this issue like a lot, to the point where it's just like, we'll just play something else, you know, and like,
Well,
I get it.
But it also means that, you know, you guys do care about the game and you guys are trying to update it as much as possible, and that's can only be beneficial in the future.
Yeah.
And so I'd say as a community as a whole, we do appreciate that a lot. But so I just have the next question.
Please.
Someone brought up the fact that planning is kind of like 50% of the game. I think that was like the previous question. And actually, I thought of like a suggestion that maybe to make planning more intuitive when players want it or when they don't, would be like maybe like a voting system to extend planning time, or maybe to skip it. And like, of course, it would be anonymous between the defenders and the attackers. But then like the game would make like a decision on whether or not the time is to be extended. Like if people want to take a little more time to plan it so that it becomes a little more effective, you know, or if, like you said, if people just don't want to plan at all and they want to go in for kills, then they can just vote to skip ahead. And maybe that could be like a good idea.
Yeah, we have considered the voting thing. It's not out of the question. It's just more like, what's the threshold required for the vote, right? And it has to happen across both teams, obviously. So it's just sort of like, it's a toughie. You know, another thing we can do, right, is provide potentially alternate modes. So if someone really doesn't want to do the planning and due process, then they can basically play what is essentially like a death match or something, right, or a gun game. And like, yeah, there are many ways to solve that, but ultimately where we want to get to, right, is that this is a game that you are trying to, like, we're trying to elevate people to wanting to make a plan and crave that, rather than just be like, well, you know, I don't really care about that. I just came here for like whatever the heck this
For
game
the
means to
action
them,
or like
right?
the kills. Yeah.
And like, I'm all for action and kills, don't get me wrong. It's just again, I'm just a bit perplexed that people would buy this game to
do that. Yeah, because it doesn't seem to be that's the fundamental thing about your game. Because I feel like when players and when myself have the most fun is when everyone's talking. Everyone is trying to get the whole thing grouped together as a team, and usually it ends up pretty well. And if it doesn't, then everyone just kind of laughs it out anyway.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's like the thing I was alluding to earlier with the final state of matchmaking, right? Is the purpose of matchmaking isn't just to make a match, right? It's to make a group of people, in our case, that are willing to communicate and cooperate. And what we want to do is modify how matchmaking works to produce groups that do that, right? And then they kind of, I guess, they maintain their connection, right? And basically play together for the rest of the night, right? And like are functioning as like a planning team, as opposed to like the state you enter sometimes when you're just sort of like no one knows each other and everyone's a little too shy to talk and we're just going to sit there in silence is like painfully bad, right? And it's on the matchmaker to like fix that, you know? So it's sort of like a non-intuitive way to solve the problem, but like our game, it really depends on it. It's like we want to make a game where essentially you look at this game on YouTube, you're like, oh my god, everyone's talking and having fun, it's like really, really cool, I want to be part of that. And then you launch it, and then you're immediately, like within a game or two, put into an environment where that happens, and you stay on it, right? Like, and you eventually build a Rolodex of players that you'll play with. Whenever you log on, you can find these people, enter groups that you'll talk to, and pretty much everyone in the community is communicating. It's sort of like the happy future I want to get to. So
yeah, that'd be like the ideal stage you want the community to be in.
Yeah, and in the meantime, we'll pursue like the obvious stuff of like, you know, how to effectively skip planning phase when no one's doing it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and how do you think you could like combat the fact that some people, you know, they want to come into your game and they don't necessarily want to chat with their team, but they still want to play your great game because they really like it, but let's just say they're not in a sociable mood, I suppose. Do you have any like sort of ways to, I guess, make it more engaging for those who aren't playing with a microphone but they still want to be a part of a team? Because I mean, I guess it is up to the individual, like that they know if they don't play with a mic they might not have a necessarily very good experience with their team, just like any kind of team-based game. But do you think that there's any sort of way to kind of help players who don't have a mic to kind of communicate better with their team?
Yeah, two paths. One is making it so that if they are on a team that is communicating, that they can better acknowledge and participate in the plan, which is, say, like the icon system was added to that goal.
Yeah,
right?
That's a really great addition, actually. Yeah,
giving them more nonverbal ways to communicate to the rest of their team, right? Like, so voice lines or whatever, right? Like all that kind of stuff that's path one, right? And then path two is to basically give an option to people who are just totally uninterested in planning, right? To go and do that somewhere else, right? And yeah, I'm just, you know, the thing that I'm scared of, right, is our game becomes about deathmatch, and it's like, but our game is just, if you want deathmatch, our game's just like a shittier version of some other game that you could be playing, right? And it's like, I just can't abide by that, you know? Like,
no, it's not what your game's about, clearly, you know, and it's definitely not what it's trying to represent. So yeah, but yeah, I really appreciate you answering my questions and taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for the questions. Really appreciate it. Last question.
Last question? Okay, let's give Synthetic another try. See if they fix their mic. Hello. Doesn't seem like it. Okay, all right. Then I have another question from Chad, which is basically people are talking about the scoreboard. The scoreboard, a thing we want to do. If so, in what form? How would it look like? Or is there a reason we don't have one right now?
Some people are like, thank you for not having a scoreboard.
Yeah.
And other people are like, where is my scoreboard? And right now there is, you know, courtesy of Index, there's a way to go online and look at the scoreboard for match results. And while that's very cumbersome, if you're motivated to go look that up, the information is there, and I think that's good. We just want to figure out a way to do a scoreboard in the future that is essentially in line with what those people who are thanking us for not having a scoreboard, like in line with their wishes. Because, you know, the fact that this game doesn't track individual performance ostensibly in the game loop does mean that they feel a bit more free to like play this game that's about coordination and communication, and not feel like they're just dragging their team down, right? And then perhaps getting bullied for it. So it's like, that's all I'm saying, is it's like, that's a really good thing, and we should probably keep that up. So we have to figure out a scoreboard that works, that you know, maintains that. And, you know, like an obvious solution would be like like some way to reveal your score to the rest of your team, and by default they're all private. Like,
interesting.
That would be a way to do it, for instance, right? I mean, there's still going to be like, you know, bro, reveal, why aren't you showing me your scoreboard, right? There's going to be like bullying there, right? So it's like, there's a balance, but it's not like I'm against bullying, but I'm not like for the pathological elimination of all vectors to bully. I think that's silly, right? It's just more, hey, it's going to take time for us to do a scoreboard, so we didn't do it because it'll introduce problems. And obviously, like all the other stuff that we've talked about today, we would like to see those too. And so it's really an either or thing. I will do, I guess, one last question, and then we're really done.
Okay, cool. Let's get once more a fight in here then. And how their mic works. Hello.
Hello.
Very good.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. One question. So a year ago, I used to play a game called Smite, and in that game, they used to monetize by selling skins and voice lines. Will you have some kind of system like that in the future or no?
Yeah, potentially. Wouldn't rule it out.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, guys, that's all for me. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
And yeah, I appreciate you guys showing up and, you know, asking these questions, and I hope it was helpful for you guys.
All right.
Thanks, Bion, for putting this together. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming here, and we'll be back in time and do another one of those, and maybe we can do
in due time.
Yeah. Maybe we can do more community hours with other devs again and do something similar. We'll see. We'll figure it out. So thanks everyone for showing up and asking good questions. And I wish you a wonderful day and enjoy the Halloween update. Bye.
This is 6-1, I'm sleeping at 39.